Hi everybody, my name is Chris Agwood and I'm going to show you how to use your Varroa check device. This is the one that we provided to some members at our March meeting. So we need this. We also need a bin. The method I'm going to teach you involves shaking the bees into a bin. We need a 1/2 cup measuring scoop. We need a filter and something to catch the filtered liquid in. And you can use either alcohol, which is kind of the default recommended solution, but if you're doing a lot, you can make up a very cheap solution by just water and Dawn dish soap. Heavy concentration, I don't have an exact ratio, but a heavy concentration of Dawn dish soap and water will work. It'll foam up a little bit, the foam settles down, and it works just as well for less money. So to start, I'll do alcohol this time. To start, we're going to fill the container with the solution. The general recommended method is to stop and only fill it up partially, put our bees in, and then add more liquid. But I've not found having enough liquid in there from the beginning to be harmful at all. So I go ahead and have enough to make sure that the bees are completely immersed in the liquid when we take our sample. Now, one thing about these devices is if you reuse, when you're using them over and over again, sometimes bees will get caught up in the rim, and if the bee gets smushed up in the rim, then it will leak a lot more than it will clean. So you want to make sure you keep the inside edge of that clean. And then I can take all of this and kind of set it away from the hive so that when I do my sample, I'm not doing it right in the middle of where all the bees are at. I can take these and set them on another hive. So to get started, we're going to smoke and open the hive. I'm going to set my hive cover here in front. And I'm using, some of my hives are triple medium like this. So I've got brood in the bottom box, brood in the middle, perhaps a little bit of brood in the top box, but generally they're going to use the top box for honey and nectar. So I'm going to take that off and set it aside. To get started getting our sample frame, I'm going to work from the outside and go in. And I'm going to stop when I've got nurse bees that are either on a frame of brood or perhaps even on the frame adjacent to the brood, because statistically the nurse bees are going to hang out where they're collecting pollen and nectar to feed the brood too. So that one I see has quite a bit of nectar and pollen, so that one might be up to snuff if the next one has a lot of brood on it. And of course I'm looking for the queen, but I don't have to find and isolate the queen to conduct this sample. If you do see the queen and you want to keep the queen safe in a queen cage or put it elsewhere in the hive, that's great. So this one has some captive brood, plenty of nurse bees. This should be an ideal frame for us to sample with. So I'm going to walk it over here to my bin. And I don't have to give it a very hard shake. A gentle shake should dislodge the nurse bees into the bin. And then the ones that fly away, I'm not terribly concerned about them because I don't necessarily want them in my sample anyway. So I can return this frame to the hive, and I can give the bees in the container a minute or two to disperse. If you come in, we can look in to the bottom, and we can now look for our queen again, because we didn't see her on the frame, but if she was on there and we didn't see her first, she's going to really stand out in this in the bottom of this bin. So I look for a few seconds to just make sure I do not see the queen running around on the bottom. I get my sample device opened up and ready, and then I simply tap the bees into the corner of the bin. I scoop until I've got about a 1/2 cup sample. It's a perfect size sample there. They go into the device, and I swirl to keep them from being able to crawl out. I want to keep the bees out of the threads, and I close it up. Now I can take it with me and just set it on a hive. I'm not in a hurry with that. I can take the remainder of the bees that are in the bin and I can return them to the hive, and I can close everything up because my sample's over with. And if part of the inspection was to look for eggs and larvae, then we've done that as well. So I close the hive up, get the bees back in the hive. So we give the solution time to kill the bees and the mites, and now we begin swirling it for 30 seconds. I recommend swirling, not shaking. Swirling will allow the mites that have died and fallen off the bee bodies to come out of the holes in the device and be able to be seen. If you're shaking it, you may or may not get the mites loose, and you're definitely going to cause any kind of leakage to be more pronounced when you're shaking it instead of swirling it. So we want to shake it for approximately 30 seconds. If this had detergent water instead of the alcohol, you'd see it foam up a bit, but the bottom half or more of the liquid would stay liquid and the foam would be on the top. And if you've got multiple people with you, one person can work on swirling this while the next person opens up the next side to get the next one ready. When it's been at least 30 seconds, we stop and set this down to let the mites fall down in the solution. When the mites have all fallen down to the bottom, we can either hold it up and look, or we can remove the basket and look. So when we remove the basket, we want to let as much of the liquid drain out to capture that as we can. And then we can discard the dead bees away from the hive. So now we can look down against, a white background to look for mites, or we can look up through the solution. But either way, we're finding out that this one did not have any mites in it. So does not mean that the entire colony doesn't have any mites whatsoever, but the level of mites is below the threshold of detection. And that's a good result, the one we want under most circumstances. So the last step is simply recover the fluid and being able to filter out debris and mites from it. So you just take any other jar and a sieve, and you want to kind of pour it in rapidly enough that mites don't stick to the edges of the container and stay behind in your sample. Now we can discard our bees, replace our basket, replace our fluid, and we're ready to go for the next sample. I hope that helped you understand how to use this, and that you will be able to confidently sample all of your colonies for their mite loads.